have a guest here today. Welcome to Soundplex Studios.
Hello, everyone. George Cook here at Soundplex Studios. We're in our recording studio. We're sitting here with Tracey Lessard from Haddonfield, and we're doing another episode of The Local Lens where we put a spotlight on someone local. And this woman is pretty special in the community and in the art world. I met her briefly. I'll tell you how I met her. I saw her last year at a art show in Haddonfield, and there was 2 deep at her booth. People were clamoring over her stuff. And I'm like, what's going on over there? And she briefly could even give me a few words, but I went in there and introduced myself, and she was very engaging for the short amount of moments because it was very busy. And I liked what she was doing. It's very colorful. It was 3D. It's cool art. I immediately liked what I saw. And then we briefly talked, and then I actually went to her home and saw her showroom, et cetera, et cetera. So now her stuff's on display here. But I wanted to bring her in today because she's got a fascinating story. Just like I always say about everyone else, everyone's got a story. No matter what they do, there's a story baked inside them that makes them who they are today. And Tracy's story is very special. So I'm going to introduce her as well today and let her talk a little bit about herself and her journey. But we're also going to showcase some of her art. We have 3 pieces of her art. She has a lot of stuff, but we're also going to be, the timing's good because first off, she's going to be in Haddonfield magazine. She's on the cover.
Haddonfield Living magazine.
Which is being released tomorrow.
Yep.
Correct? Yep. And that's cool. And then also Soundplex Studios is going to start our art showcase next week. And we're going to be spotlighting art from some of the folks that have their stuff on display here, and Tracy will be one of those. So you'll start seeing a lot more of her stuff online, and we're going to be working out our YouTube page. So stay tuned for all that stuff. It's a kind of a process that's going on as we speak. But this is actually a perfect time for Tracy because all these things are starting to happen.
Yeah.
So tell us a little about yourself. I know your story. I actually read the article in Haddonfield Living magazine, which is great. I'm like, oh my God, this girl is just like me. There's all these, sometimes, when you have this talent or this creativity thing, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's beautiful, but sometimes the mind gets very busy, and there's an idea a minute, So tell us a little bit about yourself, basic background, and then we'll talk more about some of the things that I want to talk about regarding your art and how you came about developing this unique stuff that we'll show here shortly. But give us a little background on Tracey Lessard.
Sure. I was born and raised in New York. And then I went to school, University of Delaware, met my husband, had a career, actually a very long career, 20, 30 years working in corporate enterprise sales and technology sales. And then, life just kind of happens. And the entire time I'm creative, but, you have kids, you have a job, you've got a husband and family. And you don't have time to really focus on it. So I took little classes here. I've always been, I could never draw and I could never paint. So I always assumed that I was not artistic, but I was creative. I kind of made a differential because people that could, if you said you're artistic, people immediately like, oh, can you paint beautiful things and can you draw? And I can do absolutely neither. So I did photography and I did mosaics and I did things that were a little left of center that were really interesting. And then, things happen, one thing after another. Kids grow up, they leave. You get a little bit more space for yourself, and you kind of understand who you are a little bit more. And and then we end up here.
Let me ask you something because this, I believe we go through life and we transition a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you're a corporate person, you're working within a model that's not natural for you.
No.
And I felt kind of the same way. And then all of a sudden you get to a point where you're like, I'm not going in the right direction. So you have this creative thing, this creative aspect. And, fortunately for me, all things happen with this building. And I was like I just can't paint. I don't have the patience to sit in front of something. I just wanted to move things around, decorate, and create something that vibed with people.
Right.
And you're kind of explaining the same thing. You're working in corporations. So was there a certain point you just said, okay, now I have to go find this creative path or go down this had this journey to creativity and kind of
Not
develop it?
specifically. I mean, when I was really deep in the corporate stuff, luckily I was working with in entertainment PR a lot.
Okay.
So I worked for companies that were doing press releases or the technology, and the technology companies I was working with. Excuse me. One of the companies I would be working with would be some of the entertainment companies. So some of my clients were creative. I
Okay.
worked with Microsoft or SAP or Viacom, which at the time was like MTV and all that. So I was able to get a little bit of creative outlet that way by association,
Right.
literally by association. It was never as dry. And even when I did the technical, uh, computer stuff, I was always able to find little pieces of it. But honestly, when you're younger and you have a family and you're kind of just
You have
running around, you're just trying to
obligations.
build it and you have all the obligations, there's no real breathing room for
Right.
you to know that this is something you should be focusing on. It's really just you kind of grow up, you go to college, you meet, get a career, meet somebody, married, buy a house, kids. So I think I was kind of caught up in those things, thinking, well, I wouldn't make money. I wouldn't spend my life being creative because you couldn't really do that unless you were
Right.
an actually talented creative artist, which I never considered myself to be. So, there was no part that I turned around and said, no, I can't do this. But I think I found places here and there to be creative on my own. I know when I lived in Manhattan, I definitely painted those walls. And I don't
That's
mean
cool.
like one color. I mean, I would try and do murals. They were not very good. They were a lot of splotchy colors, but it made me happy.
Right.
So you did things you could, but it wasn't until sort of you got the breathing room to, okay, my kids are gone and raised, and I don't necessarily have to work in corporate anymore. What do I want to do? And it actually what didn't happen immediately from there either. It kind of took a few moments for me to kind of let the air flood back in, kind of going, oh, I have space now. I can breathe. What is it I want to do?
Right.
What do I want to do? And then I found myself leaning towards, more mosaics and more jewelry. And I really actually thought I'd be more of a jewelry designer. And the reality is once I kind of realized that what really attracted to me to all of this was the colors. You kind of have to spend some time with it. But then I started realizing with the mosaics and all that, it was the colored glass. And I always like the more intense colors. Even when I painted or when I draw, it was how intense can I get the colors? I want to get
Right.
more, 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 more. And once I realized that, I was like, all right, well, what can I do to play with that? Resin was really good. I had done the mosaics. I had a really cool piece that I didn't think the cement grout would look great in. I was like, let me try resin. And that's kind of how we ended up here. Ended up putting some dyes in, realized that I would get that cool, light, glowy color thing that I get from mosaics,
Yep.
but I could control now what it was shaping it, and it wasn't glass that would be cutting me all day. So I was not, when you get into that sort of manic, I want to do it, and it's colors, and your brain is lighting up. I call it, or
Well,
you
that's
get a little sloppy, and you get a little
right.
cut.
And that's a trait and we'll talk about, the ADHD.
Oh yeah,
That's a trait that you're very visually acute, and lights, shapes, colors really are very vivid,
oh yeah,
and I see the same thing. And that's what attracted me to your art, because I looked at it as, okay, I like 3D. Yeah, that was cool. And then you can put different light on it and get a different look. No matter what color you throw on there,
Yeah.
it's going to change, which I like, because most art is what it is, and it's beautiful and I love it. But with your art, it can be very dynamic
It's
in
also
a
very
space like mine.
tactile, which I like.
Yeah,
And so people, I mean, if you look at the bears, it's very tactile. So it's people immediately think, oh, kids rooms. I'm in a lot of offices,
right.
and I'm in a lot of schools, and just a lot of homes, playrooms, and just it's all over my home. And I will tell you, it's very tactile, and I encourage people to touch. It's part of the experience for it is the touching of it and the feeling and the looking at it, and no matter what direction you look at it, it's actually part of how I do my process when I lay it out on the board. I wait a few days. I don't glue anything, and I move things around, because as the light changes throughout the day, as I put lights on overhead, as different light shines through, you see it from different angles. And that's kind of what helps it become the right piece.
Right. And I think that's a good time to we'll segue to that piece of art, because when I met you, I saw the bears,
Yeah.
and I was thinking, oh, Grateful Dead. She's got Grateful Dead bears. This is, I own a music studio. So I
Right.
have people coming in, love Grateful Dead. And
And I'm
I
a
saw it
deadhead.
as that. But then you mentioned gummy bears. I go, oh yeah, you know what? Gummy bears are big, especially with all these cannabis companies
Mhm.
doing gummy bears. So you're onto something there. And I think visually it's very appealing to put on a wall. You got all the colors. So let's take a look at that art now. And why don't you tell us a little bit about this? I know there's a number of different bears on this piece of art. There's different colors.
Yep.
Do you have different sizes of this? Like what's the morphing of doing bears or gummy bears and then kind of aligning them up, doing the linear stuff, the different colors?
I didn't start with bears. I started with, I think, a couple other things, maybe even circles or things like that. And then what ended up happening is when you bring them to market, everybody kept asking for the bears. So I
Right.
have little skeletons and I have circles and I have bear bricks, which are kind of a collectible that I collect, actually, Medicom bear bricks from Tokyo. And there was a shape that I had that I thought would be really, actually, I think you have it over there too. I thought it would be really popular. And when it comes down to it, there's something pleasing in the way about the way the light plays with the bear bricks. Excuse me, the gummy bears, and that's what people call
Bear
them.
bricks.
I didn't name
Yeah.
the gummy bears. I didn't name them that. People did, and they just kept coming, asking by name, "Where are the gummy bears? Where are the gummy bears?" And I realized, the gummy bears themselves are the one shape that it's almost rounded. So even looking at it now, I can see in every color a few different colors. And then really for me, it's what is the harmonious, what are the colors, uh, do the colors fit together on the board? Do the shapes work together on the board? So I have right now large popsicles that I do. And people are like, oh, can you do a square of them? Blah, blah, blah. You kind of can't. It
Right.
just doesn't work for the shape of the board. So a lot of times the shape of what you're resining, because I hand pour everything myself and I use colored pigments and I'll mix things
And those
together.
popsicles are life size.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I use real popsicle. If you made homemade popsicles, I'm probably using
Right.
the same molds.
Yeah.
And real wooden sticks. And it really becomes what makes sense for the board, what makes sense for the colors, what makes sense for the shape,
Right.
and then what works in harmony, and then
And then
from
away you
there,
go.
then away you go. But you can't. It's funny. It kind of informs it. I can't force it.
Right. So when you make a piece like this, do you make just one, or what's the scale like? Because I know I've seen you at these shows and you
Yeah.
have racks and racks of
Well,
similar items.
yeah, it's fun. I let my ADHD kind of lead on this one, which is really
Good for you.
Yeah, no, it's a cool one. So I'll go through realistically the process is generally I will say, okay, let's make some bears, which is kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm getting prepped for this Haddonfield show coming up in a couple weeks. I will go up, and this is the fun part for me. Well, they're all fun parts for me. I'll go upstairs, I'll lay out all these molds, and sometimes I make my own molds like I did for you with
Yep.
the headphones. And sometimes I have pre-made bears, which I did, and I will lay them all out, and then I will just go to town and I'll spend an afternoon playing with colors. I'll mix the resin, and then you just in little cups, you just kind of mix color after color after color, and you're pouring colors all day. And it is so fun and satisfying. And then it dries, and you pop them out. And again, because every step of this sort of works with my ADHD. It's very tactile. You're picking at things to
Right.
clean up the room. You wait for things to dry, and you pick it off of the resin like color forms when we were a kid. So it's fun.
Even the cleaning is fun.
Even the cleaning is fun.
That's a rare breed right there.
It's really weird. Even when I tape pieces up and it's dried, pulling the resin tape off is kind of fun because it's just very satisfying.
Would this be easy for someone to do at home, or is it very
Messy.
yeah, because I'm asking that because I bet you a lot of people are like you that would rather work in this medium versus
Glass.
doing something
Yeah.
else. But okay, you're talking about resin. You got to, there's it's a chemical. I mean, do you wear a mask or
Yeah, I wear 2 layers of I do have an air purifier, and I do wear I wear a smock, and I wear 2 layers of gloves because it will go
Right.
through. The resin is not high scent, but I do keep the airflow and
And it's
circulation
not
well. And I
heat
have,
or anything. It's just room temperature.
yeah,
Correct?
it's
Okay.
it's 2-part epoxy, and I
Yep.
use Promise Epoxy, which is a professional level epoxy. I would say if somebody's really interested, they should start with a little
Right.
UV product. They sell them in small bottles. You usually use it for jewelry or smaller pieces, and use UV light to solidify it. Resin itself is something somebody could do at home,
Right.
but it's not a small commitment. It's essentially playing with 2 parts of honey, and you're mixing them and you're playing with them together. So imagine that, but it's getting everywhere. It's going to be. That's why people like, can kids
How long
do it?
does it take to harden?
It depends which one I use. If I use a tabletop one, it's usually about 4 hours. I'm
Okay.
using a new artist series now, which has got much more UV protectant and much more, they call it crystal clear, but it's just got a good feel.
Right.
And that one takes about 12 to 24 hours, but it's
Right.
worth it considering what I get at the end.
Okay.
So yeah, but people could do it at home, but I would say start small and start with maybe something UV,
Right.
because it's really a mess. It's a mess. But
Yeah.
you know, if you have a designated space, and the more you do it, like anything else, the cleaner you'll work, and the smarter you'll work, and you'll get the hang of it. But it's a really fun medium.
Yeah, because I see a lot of stuff on like Instagram where they're putting down. It could be plants, it could be rocks, stones, and then they're pouring
Right.
epoxy on it.
And that's a different type of. It's funny when you see the plants; they're never live plants.
No, they're fake.
They
but-
have to be.
And they have light. For some reason, they're putting lights in there, so you have this floor that's like
Yeah.
spectacular.
You know what? I think those are probably custom pieces that you've seen in custom
Yes.
projects, and I could do the same. As a matter of fact, we've talked about putting lights in certain pieces that we
Right.
have. You know, you'd have to do it a certain way. I think pieces with tables where you could put it around the edge,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
or
Like maybe
floor
even
where you
some
could put it around the
tabletops.
edge, you could absolutely do. Pieces of art would be harder because it would be harder to somewhere to place it. But I think it's one of those mediums that lends itself to, do you want to play with light? Because light really does play wonderfully in this.
Right.
You know, do you want to add some colored lights? Do you add some pigments? So I love when I see those too. This is something different, but yeah, I mean, everybody really, you know, the creativity I see online, because the medium really is so flexible, is never ending.
Right.
You know, it's very interesting to see.
That's awesome. So I'm going to put another piece of art up.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But I have some few other questions about, your diagnoses and how
Sure.
we both can kind of relate to that, which will be interesting.
Sure.
All right. All right. So we have another piece of art, but before we talk about that piece, let's talk about the family life. Because that's always important when there's a creative in the house. And how it meshes with the family. So tell us a little bit about your family. I know you're married and you
Yeah.
have a son and a daughter.
I have a son and a
Tell
daughter.
us a little bit about that,
Well,
and then we'll kind of get into
My
it.
daughter has been a creative since she's born. She is a writer, and I literally, as a teenager, wrote a book. She wrote a 200-page book. She's University of Iowa for creative writing, so she was always considered the creative in
What
the
was the
house.
book about?
It's creative realism, and it's about a girl who has powers and also is at a school with people with powers, but they are not necessarily the good guys or the bad guys, and how that dynamic would affect a teenage sitting school, but from the perspective of a kid from the school.
Maybe we should turn that into a movie. We are doing. We do have an independent filmmaker here that we just did a film.
She's got a lot of
expose.
scripts. She just dropped double major creative writing and screenwriting, so
Okay.
she could help you.
Well,
she's
get her
brilliant.
over here when she gets out of school. I know
She
you're.
studied at Interlochen too. This
Yeah.
girl's got a lot of
that's cool.
background on that. So that's my daughter. And then my son is actually autistic. He can draw. He is a creative too. He can draw. And my son is autistic. And, you know, for many years, that was one of the reasons why I was quite busy as well. And then my daughter got older, and, you know, in a family, when one of the family members has special needs, everybody kind of touches upon things. You see therapists here and there. And she was seeing somebody in high school, and they diagnosed her with ADHD. And then they both kind of turned around, looked at me, and I was like, oh, huh. And then we decided maybe it might be a good idea if possibly we got me looked at. And then, you know, as with women, and I don't know if you know this, but and I did not know this, but with women, even if you have ADHD, and they call it masking, where you can mask for most of your life, which is what I did.
So you're purposely masking it.
You don't know you are.
You're just naturally doing it?
Yeah. You don't know you are. Basically, what happens is when you're special needs, or we like to refer to it in my house as neurospicy.
Right.
In other words, everybody is a little bit
Neurodivergent. too.
neurodivergent, right? Everybody is a little bit neurodivergent. It's life.
Yes.
But so we call it neurodivergent, being neurospicy. In other words, some people, you got a little
like
bit
that
more
word.
spice.
I'm going to start calling myself neurospicy.
Neurospicy. A lot of times people come into my tent for the shows, and you can literally see their eyes popping out of their head. They're like, I don't know what's happening, but everything in this thing is making my brain tickle. And so occasionally, depending upon who they are, I'll look at them and be like, I know why.
Right.
I'd be like, are you neurospicy at all? They're like, yes. I'm like, that is what is doing it. And it's literally because really cool colors for some of us, you know, and sometimes it's sounds and sometimes it's shapes or feels, right? But for a lot of us, really cool colors really just stimulate parts of our
Yes,
brains in
absolutely.
hardcore ways. And so I really have leaned into that. I get specialty paints sent over from the UK. It's actually one of the things I used in one of my first pieces called Female Rage, which has got some really intense
That
colors.
looks just like you, but go ahead.
And then once you kind of get yourself diagnosed, you notice things. Everything all of a sudden maps back to, oh, that was actually ADHD, and that was ADHD, and that was ADHD. So it really became one of these things where, for a little while there, you're like, what's not ADHD? What is actually me as a
Right.
personality, and what is not ADHD? And that's, it started reflecting in my art a little bit when you're starting to figure out who you are. And then you realize that for your entire life, you were essentially gaslit because you were told you were a flighty or an airhead, or if you could just focus,
Yeah.
or you're so dramatic. And you just kind of turn around, you're like, no,
Yeah.
I was none of those things.
Yep.
I was just overlooked.
And I think, over time, society and the model that we live in sequestered that trait, and people didn't realize it. But I always say people are naturally creative, some more than others,
Right.
obviously. But, we live in a way that's kind of not necessarily forced, but necessary.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, when you don't have to live in that fashion, all of a sudden it exposes itself. And now
Mhm.
I'm completely exposed.
Exactly.
You're completely exposed. And now you're following in this path that makes more sense, it's more natural. And you have skills and superpowers that, how I like to say,
Yeah.
that actually allow you to kind of do what you want to do and brings you lots of joy. I mean,
Exactly.
Well,
what I like about this, and I want to make sure we get across on this, two things. One, because I did not know this, and most women don't know this. So even if you are neurospicy a little bit, if you had ADHD, a little bit distracted, once you go through menopause and perimenopause, not to go too deep here, all of that goes away. All it gets rid of any remaining dopamine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you were holding on okay and kind of managing okay, and it usually hits right around the time the kids are ready to go.
Right.
So when you get these, a lot of times couples, husbands, and they're like, what's wrong with their wife? They kind of just, yes, the kids left, but it's also, if you were neurodivergent and you're going through menopause, it really depletes everything. So any scaffolding, I call it, you were doing for masking, anything you were doing to hold yourself up, that's now gone.
Yeah.
So you are at the most baseline of baseline, and you literally have to kind of rebuild everything with the understanding that, okay, I'm neurodivergent. My dopamine has hit very low numbers. What does that mean? What does that look like? Who am I now? How am I going to act now? Because your personality really does change. So that's why a lot of times when you see these women or hear about these women, the stereotypes of they get old, they get cranky, they get a little bit more, it's really just their dopamine has disappeared. All the estrogens disappeared. All of those warm, happy hormones that kept us feeding people growing up, those are gone.
Right. So what does that mean? So now you have to
Female rage.
So you have the female rage. So this is a piece of artwork that we're looking at right now, very colorful. And like I said, when I saw it and you brought it in, I said, Tracy, that it's like splitting image. What were you thinking, and what was going through your head when you painted this or created this piece?
This was really just overwhelmed. At the time, my son, who is autistic, but as any special needs parent will tell you, it's never a straight line. And he had gone through, it was right around 15, 16 after COVID, and he was going through some stuff. And we realized we had to put him in an in-place on-site facility, special schools to help him in ways that we couldn't, which was really, really traumatic, because all you ever hear about these places or schools or things sending your kid away is, horror and nightmares. We had the opposite. He had amazing places that we went. He's doing fantastic. He's at school right now. He's doing great. But when you're going through the process and you don't really know what that's going to look like, it's in the end you're learning you're neurodivergent. And my husband does have Parkinson's, and at the time that this page was made, he was going in for DBS surgery, which I just kept saying brain surgery. He's going in for brain surgery. So I had my son that needed to be placed in a full-time facility. I had my husband, who I've been with 30 years, going in for brain surgery, which was not brain surgery. It was actually anybody getting DBS surgery. It's fantastic, and I highly recommend it if it's the right solution.
Is it effective at?
It's so good.
Does it? What does it do? Does it slow the process
No,
down?
you know what it is? It's similar. They use it for having seizures as well.
Okay.
And it's literally deep brain stimulation, DBS. It's a little battery here. Matter of fact, next year we got to go get the battery
Oh, so it
replaced.
happens all the time. So he has
Yeah,
like,
it's battery pack and it's wires up through your brain. And so legitimately it's pulses on these two little incisions, on these two little wires inside your brain. There's 3 sections, and then you go every 6 months, I call it, for a tune-up. And they literally just change the pulse, the frequency, where it's being hit, and it helps control the way the brain is activating. Because the thing about Parkinson's is his physical body is perfectly fine.
yeah, I
There's
saw
no-
him. He seemed fine.
But it's not, but it's also like there's no, like, even if you saw somebody that was sort of shaking and
Right.
stuff, it's perfectly fine. The body itself is not doing the control. The muscle
the
is not
brain.
hurt. It's the brain telling you that.
Right.
It's the craziest thing I've seen. So when you're telling it, you have these things in your brain disrupting it, saying, "Hey, no, we're good." It all of a sudden he's back to his old self. And we have an app at home, so we can tweak him every so often within limits. And
You don't press like the.
every so often I'll do it because he'll be like, I'm fine. I'm like, okay, you're dragging your back leg. Let me change.
Does he feel anything when you do stimulate
No,
it?
he'll feel it like 10 minutes later, and all of a sudden it might be like medicine taking effect. Like all of a sudden you feel a little
Right.
looser. It's that
Interesting.
feeling.
It's almost like a pacemaker, but it's
Exactly.
like an
But it's for your brain.
on-demand type
Yeah.
thing.
It's exactly what it is.
I had no idea that something like that existed.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
pretty wild.
It is. But when you're learning about it for the first time and you don't know what you're like, and you're having, basically, that is called female rage because I was overwhelmed.
Yes.
And I was like, I had all these new feelings and emotions that I wasn't accounting for. And then I also had the issue with my son and the issue with my husband, who everybody is fantastic now. But going through that moment, I was really glad I had the art to sort of communicate it. But there is a whole series called Female Rage, and it may also have been influenced by what is happening in the government and female, rights being taken away and how we're now all of a sudden second-class citizens. But I don't really want to go there.
No, you don't want to go there.
We don't want to go there. But, it was really about just screaming at the sky because how could I have been overlooked and how could we have let this go for so long? And women are still totally overlooked
Right.
from that perspective. So female
Interesting.
rage.
Female rage it is. So tell us a little about where you're going. Like, I like to live in the present.
Yep.
That's my nature now. I've learned to do that. I don't dwell on the past.
No.
And the future is never guaranteed. So I live in the present. I enjoy as much as I can.
Exactly.
Where are you going? Where are you taking this? And do you have a plan, or are you just living in the moment and enjoying the ride and having fun?
Yes. But yes.
There's always a but.
Yes, I am actually.
You have to think buts.
Yeah, I am living in the moment and having fun, and that's the priority. Frankly, that is the priority.
Yep.
After the last few years of it being just really kind of challenging and now everybody finally getting into a healthy, stable place. And then the business is luckily all of a sudden being noticed. It's being seen a bit more. The art is being seen a bit more. I'm very lucky. I have this wonderful woman named Andrea at the Paper Trail in Haddonfield. They carry my stuff at their store. She's fantastic. She's been one of my biggest champions.
So she has just so I know, because we want to call her out.
Yep.
The Paper Trail in Haddonfield. So it's right on Main Street?
Right on Main Street. Look for the giant heart, right? She's right by the gazebo.
The giant heart.
Yep, she's right by the gazebo. Matter of fact,
Okay.
I will be at the Haddonfield Art Fair in 2 weeks, and I will be right next door to the store.
Okay.
And now all my art is the back of my art. We'll see in the window. You'll see all my name. But yeah, so where am I going? Right now I keep exploring different things. This summer, popsicles seem to be something that I was really having a lot of fun with, and then the sprinkles, making things 3D.
And these popsicles don't melt in the heat, right?
No, they don't melt in the heat.
Okay, that's good.
And that is part of why I use the resin I use, is that it's heat-resistant resin, it's UV-resistant resin. But from a business perspective, I'm looking for more partnerships outside of Haddonfield. Andrea is my exclusive partnership. I really would like to get in some stores down at the beach. I think we're just kind of trying to see what presents itself next in terms of making partnerships and getting in other stores or working with designers for pieces. I love doing custom pieces, as you know. I've done a bunch of custom pieces for Soundplex.
Yep.
So doing custom pieces is always interesting because I would never have done microphones and headphones
Right.
if it had not been for you guys.
And we have them on display. So we're going to showcase, when we do our 90-minute showcase, 90 seconds. We're going to have the microphones, the headphones, and I think I have two of each, I believe.
Yep.
So we're going to put them on display and point them out because that's kind of cool. And I think, when you talk about your partners out there, this is kind of a nice segue just into a brief discussion about, what we're doing here. So with artists, it's hard to get noticed. Art is part of life,
Yep.
but in order to get noticed, you have to get likes. It's all this social media stuff that
I'm
you have
barely
to-
on social media.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
I've got to get
And
more on social media.
I'm not a real big fan either, but it's a shame that it's like that.
Yeah.
And
It's the world that we live in today.
but we have to live in it, and so be it. So with that said, I think our plan going forward could be very effective for you because we've built this Plex Collective membership where we're trying to take someone's story, and if it's a good one, and yours is a good one, but say the person has a great story, but they're not telling it right, or the way it's being displayed on their website or their business not. Yeah, we're curating that to be more effective, and then we're creating the content
I
and
would
whatever
love
it
any
is.
help I can get.
We should talk about that. But as a side note, I think getting partners could be part of that because if you're saying that's what you want to do,
Well, I think being in stores.
yes,
Partners. When I mean partners, I mean I would love to be in more
want more
stores in more
displays.
areas.
Yep.
And then we usually do a 50-50 split, and it's a lovely thing, for everybody.
Oh, 50-50. There we go. I just got a raise.
Exactly. You're 50-50. We're 50-50 on stuff. But also, just be this also carry to more stores and then just online. I think we're going to actually start we realized doing the smaller stuff and doing the popsicles that some of my biggest sellers really are the small. For me, I was always under the impression that if people wanted my art, I like it bigger.
Right.
More and more. Bigger, the bigger the piece, the more impactful. The colors, it's the excess, right, of ADHD. It's like more.
Oh yeah.
But then I realized I started making these popsicles, and they were really colorful. I sold out of them this past couple weeks. So, what I'm realizing is I could probably do a lot of that stuff. And even the 3 bears sold out.
Right.
Just doing 3 bears on a board, which still look lovely and are really
Yeah,
cool.
that's
But
cool.
it allows people to take something home that's small. So I might start doing something like that on an Etsy shop or, or even one of the other shops. So, and I do have a website that I sell things on too, but it's hard to stay up with that stuff. So right now we're just trying to figure out what makes the most sense.
That's cool.
Really.
I like a lot of tabletop because I think your stuff goes real well on the tabletop as well because it's durable for one thing. So
Very
if someone
durable.
spills something on it, it's
Right.
not the end of the world.
Yep.
But you spoke of the popsicle. So let's take a look at that popsicle piece.
Okay, great. I mean, camera aside, you work with a lot of artists. What do you see as a good avenue for getting art out there? Because somebody's like, oh, open a store. I'm like, art is one of those things you buy it when you want it. So if you're walking around an art fair, you're into it. If you're going on Etsy, you're into it. But you don't walk past an art store and decide to pop in. It's just not that sort of thing. So I have no interest in that really.
Right. What I found, I go to the Rittenhouse Art Festival. Fascinating. It's great stuff.
That one is a fair I probably will never go to. I've said I've never zoomed. It's not the same thing. It's a fine art fair.
Yeah, you're not.
I'm not fine art.
Those
art.
festivals are great because you get recognition. But I think, and I'm doing a lot of experimenting with art because I love art and I want to support artists.
Oh.
So with these reels that we're going to create, they call them verticals. They're 90 seconds. They're going to be I'm going to throw in a
Call
little
them
humor.
reels because that is the term they use on Instagram.
Yes.
Or you can call it TikTok, but a reel makes sense.
Yeah, and that's going to be fun for me. And I did one on the Marilyn Monroe painting from Andy Warhol. That's a
I
print.
love that. Yeah.
But it's a fascinating painting because it changes colors, and I love it. It's beautiful
Love that.
and so on. But I think you have to be out there. But someone can watch a reel and they say, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And then there's got to be a call to action, like check out our stuff on our website. So now, and I looked at your website. Your website's fine.
I just don't. I have to keep putting. I have to make sure I'm constantly putting the new stuff. But when I put a lot of the new stuff on, it gets sold immediately.
Right.
But somebody pointed out that it's okay if it's not exactly. If this is sold,
can
at
you
least
duplicate a piece? Like if someone like that female rage, and can you duplicate it?
I can do something similar. So the way I would do it, and the way I kind of do it, it's the way I do custom pieces.
Right.
Because you can't really duplicate something exactly. Everything is really unique from the way I pour from how much ink I use in the resin to get the depth of color, to having the exact right shades, to the way my hand moves. But what I can do is use a similar color palette, use a similar style, put 2 or 3 together, and then let you choose from that one that hopefully gets it
Oh,
close enough
that's
to
cool.
the one that you like.
Yeah, that's
so it's
good.
not exactly, but it will get you in the ballpark of, like, even if somebody said to me, can you make me a small blue bears? I would probably make 2 or 3 because blue is, I've got 20 shades of blue.
Yeah.
You know, I never know what that, so I'll make a few of them, let somebody look at it, let them choose what they like. And if they don't like any of them, great, I'll sell it. And if they love it, then fantastic, you get something you like.
Yeah, maybe
but it's hard,
maybe even doing an upcharge on a custom piece. You know, I mean,
I know.
because art is very subjective. Art's very specific. It can be very unique. And so if someone wants, like, even if someone wanted a wall done, you know, I mean, you could, like, those acoustic panels that you see in the studio, they would be cool with a little bit of acrylic on them, you know, where there's wood and then there's some acoustic material, but it would be cool. Now they look very chic. I like the way they look, but like acoustic panels with some dimension to them, a little bit more dimension to them, with some colors would be pretty interesting.
We could probably go through and glue some gummy bears straight up and down on those.
There you go. Yeah,
and that would be really cool.
That would be really cool. And even these glass blocks that you see,
Yeah.
I would like to put color on them because it's, you know, it's cool. Light comes in, but if I added some color in there, I would get color coming through those glass blocks versus just regular.
If you hot glued some of my, if you went blocks by blocks and put one hot glued gummy bear on each block,
that would be cool.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah. So that's what I want.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that.
And it's okay that you know, this is part of the broadcast. So this is cool that we're talking this way because when it comes to art, the choices are infinite. Yeah. You know, and there's no right or wrong answer, and that's the beauty of it because you know, people will always have an opinion on art, and they should.
I was scared to go out and put my stuff out there at first because I thought real art, and this is true, I thought real artists would look at my stuff and be like, well, that's schlock. That's not really art. Because it's not, you know, again,
it's not fine art,
it's not fine art. But it is art. And you know what? And the more I get into layering my processes, the more, because I have pictures where I've put clear bears over it and sort of let it enhance and play with it. And I think you have a couple of them.
Yes.
You know, the more I've gotten a little bit more comfortable with settling into being like, okay, I am an artist. You know, it's not a fine artist. That's okay.
Right.
And if you don't love my stuff, that's okay too. I like to play with, I think I refer to it more often than not, that I like to play with colors. And if you enjoy that, fantastic. And if not, because you know, people go to years and years and years for artwork. They study, they really hone skills. And I mean, I have definitely beat my 10,000 hours. Like I have done my work. I am not talking down on what I do. That said, I definitely have a respect for somebody that has spent their life really training because it's really different.
Yep.
But I enjoy what I do, and I think people like it too. So that's okay also, and it's room for both of us in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, we're actually, we talked to an art school a few months ago, or maybe a month and a half. They're going to open up an art school here in September.
Very
cool. Realism. So they bring models in. They teach anatomy, geometry. It's a whole process.
All the stuff I probably couldn't do.
Oh my God. It's a slow process. I mean, you know, there's a lot of moving forward and backwards into the easel, you know, look at the model, then go. It's memorization too.
That bears one, I will leave that on a table for 3 or 4 days and walk around and just move one bear and walk around it and like let the light thing and just kind of sit there and stare at it. And you know, I get it. Yeah. I get it. I mean, it may not seem like it for something like this, but I definitely do spend that time because the colors reach from all different directions and you need to make sure that they're working in harmony in the right way to kind of get that little spark.
Right. And not to change the subject, but your price points are good too.
Oh,
I like your price points. I think they're affordable because at the shows, a lot of kids go and they're see, oh, look, gummy bears. Oh, look, popsicles. And oh, that's only $130 or $150 or whatever it is.
Yep.
Oh, let me buy for my kids' room. You know, and that's kind of cool because I think your stuff is appealing to children with the gummy bears and the popsicles because what kid doesn't like popsicles? You know, and what adult doesn't like popsicles?
But you know what? I'll tell you, I probably have sold more for people that are doing it for the shore house or the cabana. You know, and honestly, what you said is very true. I try to, our philosophy, and I say our because when I get into the big business part of it, I do include my husband. You know, I try to partner with him. He's got a background in finance and he's the biggest supporter, and I love you very much, Colin. He's just been the best. I couldn't have done this as well as I've been doing it without him. But one of the things that we really made a conscious effort of this year is making sure there is something at every price point. Yes. Because you know what? It's not just the kids. I had a woman come over and buy I think 60 bears from me the other day, and then she's going to go. She was an artist, and she's going to go make her own thing. It really becomes very interesting when you. I just don't assume anymore. So I've made a point to have everything from 3 for 10 bears all the way up to the $500 big, 36 by 36 pieces, simply because even if you're a small college student and you want 3 bears on a board, and that's, I think they were $25 or $30, you can afford that. And you have that little bit of something smile in your bathroom when you're brushing your teeth, or by the light switch when you're turning it off. And that makes you smile, and especially on a rainy day. So I've my big philosophy of this is I want to get it to as many people that want it. And if it means I lower my price points, so be it, because I would really rather people that love my art have my art than make $10 extra. That's not where I am with things anymore. I was that maybe as a youth, we were all like money, money, money. And you get to a certain place and you're like, okay, I've been through the money thing. And yes, it's important, but I want people to have it.
Yeah, that's great. And I think your art deserves a space in just about everyone's home, and including here. So where can people find the art? I know you mentioned the Haddonfield Festival coming up.
I'm going to be at the Haddonfield Art Festival next weekend, both days, actually. I will be by...
that's the 11th and 12th.
11th and 12th. And I'll be on Kings Highway, right by the entrance to the gazebo area. So it'll be right there.
Where you were last year.
Where I was last year, right. I'll be right next door to the paper trail, where you can find my artwork.
Okay.
And then after that, I will be at the Collingswood Festival, August 14th and 15th, I believe, or 15th and 16th. I have to find that one out.
I think it was that weekend. I think you said 14th and 15th.
14th and 15th. And then you can always find me at the paper trail or on my website. And Instagram will always have my newest stuff, because I try to keep my website up to speed. But this time of year, it becomes a little harder. So Instagram gets all the love. But I'm trying to figure out how to make them sync. And I'm getting better at it. But we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll help you with that too. And her stuff's all on display here at Soundplex Studios. So come on out and check it out.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I'm going to start doing some art showcases next week. You'll start seeing that on Instagram and Facebook. And we're going to showcase Tracy's art there as well.
Reels.
So we may come back and do this like every 3 months or something, just to get an update and showcase some new stuff.
I would love to. If you'd love to have me, I would love to come.
Awesome. Tracy, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You got it. See you,
take care.
folks. Bye.